It's been three weeks. 2 weeks, right? Last week we're not here, and the previous week we were also not here. And we were studying the seven last kings. All right? The seven last kings, we only made it through, I think, Josiah. All right? And we still have to finish that. We kind of went a little fast. Well, we'll have to make a little recap because it's been 3 weeks. We have to make a little recap and understand so that we can understand what we went through last time and then go forward from there. There are 7 kings, the 7 last kings, and how that applies to the time of the Millerites, because the time of the Millerites repeat in our time, because it will show us where we are standing in the end times and help us prepare, because the judgment of Jerusalem will be the same judgment that will happen to spiritual Israel also, all right? Because we are part of spiritual Israel. And there's going to be a people that have to be able to run to the mountains, just like the time of ancient Israel. All right, so we will continue. The 7 last kings of Judah. Let me find where we... Okay, let's... Remember this is the father of the 7th of the last king. His name is Hezekiah. If you remember Hezekiah, I always remember him as the show-off king. He showed off to the Babylonians, right? Right. And because of that, Isaiah had to, it was Isaiah, that's right. Isaiah prophesied that your sons will become eunuchs in Babylon. All right. And his son is Manasseh. Manasseh, and then Ammon, and then Josiah. Josiah is the last good king. Although at the end he didn't believe, he believed in his own power and did not believe in God's intervention for what he wanted to do for Assyria. He wanted to take it in his own hands. He wanted to punish Assyria when it was Babylon's. Wait a minute. Egypt is supposed to punish Assyria. All right. He wanted to do it himself. All right. And his son was Jehoahaz. And Jehoahaz, well, obviously Jehoiakim is not the son of Jehoahaz. Jehoiakim is the brother of Jehoahaz. Now, Jehoiachin is the son of Jehoiakim. And Zedekiah is whose brother? Jehoahaz and Jehoiakim's brother is Zedekiah. And Zedekiah is the last king. All right, so we did Manasseh, Ammon, and Josiah, but we really need to review again Josiah a little bit. Oh, there you go. Maybe we should back up a little bit. This is actually how he died. But remember, Josiah was already prophesied that Josiah is going to come. And the prophecy was given at the time of Jeroboam. Now this is Jeroboam, the king of Israel, the king of Israel who actually set up two calves of gold, right? Right. He did a double apostasy. He did the double apostasy of Jeroboam. He did the double apostasy of Aaron. And there was a prophet that came out of Judah. And that prophet prophesied that there is going to come Josiah, that Josiah will come and destroy the the altars and the groves, all right? And Jeroboam, he did not want to believe it, and his hand was shriveled up, and he wanted to hold hand, he wanted to attack the prophet, all right, and his hand shriveled up. But God still had mercy on him. His hand was revived again. Now that prophet came to Israel from Judah, and then he wanted to go back. And Jeroboam says, "Oh, you should come and eat with me." He says, "Oh, no, I'm not allowed to come and eat with you. I have to go back." So he saddled his ass, and he went back. He started going back to Judah. All right. In the meantime, there was another prophet. It was the prophet of Bethel, which is the prophet of Samaria. And that prophet said, "Okay, maybe I'll go. I heard the story. Let me go and meet this prophet of Judah." So he went and met that prophet, and he says, "You know, the Lord actually gave me a vision that you should come and eat with me." And says, "No, I'm not supposed to eat with you." But then he kept persisting and persisting and persisting. Eventually, that he persuaded that prophet to come and eat with him. So now the prophet becomes a disobedient prophet, right? He came and ate. And then afterwards, he went and he said, "Okay, I need to go." And when he went, he saddled his ass again. And what happened to him? He was killed. He was killed by a lion. All right. So now this prophet that actually had invited for him to eat with him, now this prophet says, "Okay, I'm going to go and see this prophet that has been killed." He went there and what did he see? He was dead. The carcass was at the side of the road, and the lion was next to it, and the ass was next to it, and the ass was not killed by the lion. And this is prophetic, right? Yeah. And this is actually prophetic. So he took back the body because he says, "Well, now because you have disobeyed, you are not going to be buried with your fathers in Judah. You're going to be buried here in Israel." So then he buried that prophet. That prophet actually was a prediction of Josiah, because Josiah eventually came and destroyed the temples of Baal, right, in Bethel, and destroyed the groves. But also that prophecy is for our time, okay, because there's going to be a false prophet that's going to be killed by a lion, and the ass is going to stand right next to him, and they're not going to die. All right. But anyway, we'll go through that, because that story is the prediction of Josiah. Now, Josiah is also known because he was the one that restored the temple, restored the Passover, right? And at the time of the restoration, what did they find? The book. And that book was read to him, and he decided that he wanted to believe in it, and he restored the temple. And what book was it that was restored? The book of the law, which is Deuteronomy 29, right? And he says, you have to suffer for what your fathers have done, and you have sinned. And so that way now you have to go and be taken captive. But Josiah was actually promised by Huldah the priest, because you have done good and you have also restored the temple, you will not have to go. It's your sons that will have to go. All right, you will not have to go. You can die with your fathers. I guess, in the old days when they said, okay, you're going to sleep with your fathers, that's a good thing. Because otherwise you'll be taken captive somewhere. It's better that you say, you are going to sleep with your fathers, meaning you are going to be buried in Jerusalem. All right. So, then comes the part where Josiah does not believe in God's providence now, because he decides that he is going to, he's going to fight and defeat the Assyrians, right? He was going, when the Assyrians were fighting against Egypt. Now, why was the Assyrians fighting against Egypt? Because it was the Assyrians that took Manasseh to Babylon, right? So Manasseh was punished by the Assyrians. And the principle is that if you actually do the work of God and persecute God's people, God will eventually persecute you. So somebody had to persecute Assyria. So Egypt was doing God's work now to persecute. So, all right, he sent ambassadors to him saying, "What have I to do with thee, thou king of Judah?" All right, thou king of Judah, I came not against thee this day, but against the house wherewith I have war. For God commanded me to make haste. I'm doing God's work. I'm supposed to punish Assyria for the sins of your fathers. All right? So don't meddle with me. Don't meddle with God. But instead, nevertheless, Josiah would not turn from his face from him, but what did he do? He disguised himself. And he was shot by an archer in Megiddo. And then he was taken back to Jerusalem and he died in Jerusalem. So that's Josiah. Okay? Because this story becomes so familiar because it happens to other kings. Right? Who's another king? Saul. And that then said Saul unto his servants. Saul was going with his own power, wants to go and fight the Philistines. All right? The Philistines were fighting, and Saul realized that he did not have a prophet that he can consult with. So he had to go to the witch of Endor. So he went into full-blown spiritualism. All right? The king of Israel went into spiritualism. And what did he do? To be able to go that, what did he have to do? He disguised himself and put in another raiment. After he had listened to what the Spirit said, that he is going to die and his son is going to die, that witch invited for him to eat. Right? And he said, refused. No, I cannot eat with you. But the witch continued to say, okay, you have to eat with me. And then what eventually did he do? He ate with the witch. All right. Does this story become familiar now? It's the same story. Right? And he did eat with them. And what happened to Saul? And the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in the Mount Gilboa. Mount Gilboa is very, very prophetic because it has a prophetic significance because it's at Megiddo. And the Philistines fought with him, and Saul was hit by an archer. And did he die? No, he was wounded. Because how did he die? He fell on his own sword, right? He fell on his own sword. And what did the Philistines do? They cut off his head, stripped off his armor, sent him into the land of Philistines so that they can publish it, so they can show him off in the house of their idols among the people. And they put his armor in the house of Ashtoreth. And they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. They hung his body on a nail at the wall of Bethshan. And then they burnt him there.
Wow, that's a sad thing.
Yeah, sad thing to happen to Saul. Because he had to be hung on a nail, right? Right. Yeah, and the nail is, we already studied it. The nail is actually Jesus. The nail is the house of David. Yeah, he wanted to kill the house of David so that he eventually was hung on a nail. All right. Now we have another story. I don't think we got this far. It's the story of Ahab. Remember Ahab?
Right.
Yeah. Ahab is the king of Israel. And how many tribes in the Israel? 10. 10. And the wife is Jezebel. Now, this is the story later in his life about the time that he was going to die, because Ahab decided that he wants to claim back Ramoth Gilead. Ramoth Gilead was already taken by the Syrians. He wanted it back. He wanted it back. And what did he do? He invited Jehoshaphat, which was Jehoshaphat is the king of Judah. And they said, okay, let's go fight the Syrians and we'll claim Ramoth Gilead back. Jehoshaphat says, okay, I can do that. But you know what? Every time when I go to war, I want to get a prophet to tell me, what is the best thing to do. Do you have a prophet here that I can ask? So Ahab said, well, you know what? There is a prophet. His name is Micaiah. Where is Micaiah? Is it part of this? All right. But anyway, his name is Micaiah. But I don't like to ask him. Why don't I like to ask him? Because he always prophesies bad things against me. So what do I do? I have my own prophets. I have 400 of them. So I will consult my own hired prophets. Because these prophets always prophesy good things for me. So what do those prophets did? What did the prophets, those prophets of the grove that he had hired, tell them? Oh, go. You're going to win. You're going to go and you're going to win. The Lord is going to be on your side. So what did he do? He disguised himself. And what happened to him? He was hit by a bow and he was wounded. And eventually they took his body back. And where did they take his body? They took his body back to Jezreel. Jezreel is the place of his palace. Now Jezreel is also the place of Naboth. You remember Naboth?
The one that has a vineyard.
The one that had a vineyard. And he wanted that vineyard.
That's right.
And what did he do? He gave it like a little child, and
He killed him.
and he basically, his wife killed Naboth, and the vineyard was given to him. That was at Jezreel.
Yeah.
And the prophecy was that Elijah prophesied. It is in 1 Kings 21, verse 19. Thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Hast thou killed and also taken possession? And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, In the place where dogs lick the blood of Naboth, shall dogs lick thy blood, even thine. So what happened to him? He died, and the blood ran out of the wound in the midst of the chariot, and one washed the chariot in the pool of Samaria, and the dog licked up his blood, and they washed his armor, according to the word of the Lord which he spake. All right? It's amazing.
This is what happened after Elijah?
Yeah. Yeah, this happened after Elijah. So he actually died. And he was wounded with an arrow. And he eventually died in Jezreel. And his body and his blood was licked by dogs. Okay. Now, you remember the story of Jehu?
Mm-hmm.
Who was Jehu?
He selected
Jehu was selected by Elisha. And Jehu was selected by Elisha to avenge all the wickedness of Ahab and Jezebel. Okay, so what did Jehu do? Jehu actually,
he do his own.
yeah, he killed the sons of Ahab. All right, I have to get the names. The names becomes a little complicated for me. All right, now Jezebel and Ahab had sons, and they became king after Ahab, right? And the king was, okay, let me see the name of that king. All right, The king was Joram. Joram, right? And Joram was killed with an arrow by Jehu. All right? Now, Ahab had a daughter. Her name is Athaliah. Athaliah went down to Judah and married the son of Jehoshaphat. So Athaliah became the queen of Judah. And this is actually the daughter of Ahab. Right? And Athaliah's son is called Joram or Jehoram. Jehoram. And what happened to Jehoram? Jehu killed him, right? This is the grandson of Ahab, who became the king of Judah. Jehoram was killed by Jehu where? In Megiddo. So arrows and archers and Megiddo is prominent in the story of Ahab also. Ahab also disguised himself, and he was hit with an arrow and he died. And his blood was licked by dogs. Okay, what happened to Jezebel? Right, Jehu went and chased her. And Jezebel heard that Jehu was coming, and she knew that this was going to be the end for her. So what did she do? All right. Right. But there's one thing that she did before she was going to be killed. What did she do? She painted her face. What does painting your face mean? Disguising yourself. She painted her face. Right. And then after that, the soldiers of Jehu came, and what did they do? They pushed her out the window, and she died. She died on the floor. And what happened to her? The dogs licked her, just like the dog licked Ahab's blood. Right. Okay. That's pretty amazing. So when Jehu was doing all this, Jehu was helped by a certain man by the name of Jehonadab. Jehonadab, the son of Rechab. Okay, you are going to say, okay, big deal. What does that mean? All right, you have to put this in your memory bank, because Jehonadab, the son of Rechab, helped Jehu destroy the temples of Baal. Right? Jehonadab, which also called Jonadab, the son of Rechab's descendants, refused to drink wine when Jeremiah gave them wine to test them at the time of Jehoiakim. All right? Now, all these stories are all interconnected. Now, to be able to know all these stories, it becomes all interconnected. Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to do that. Okay. Ahab disguised himself. Jezebel also disguised herself. Ahab was killed by a bow, wounded, and the dogs was licked up after he died. Jezebel was also licked, the blood was licked up by a dog. Ahab and Jezebel's descendants died with an arrow, and in Megiddo also. All right? Okay. Now, what does this all mean? It means that it's all connected. It means that it's a line upon line. All right? Okay, next. All right. What happened at Megiddo? We know this is the story of who? Gideon. Judges 6 is the story of Gideon. And so it was when Israel had sown that the Midianites came up, and the Amalekites and the children of the east. Even they came up against them, and they encamped against them and destroyed the increase of the earth till they came unto Gaza and left no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep nor ox, nor ass. For they came up with their cattle and their tents, and came as grasshoppers and as camels without numbers. And all the Midianites and the Amalekites and the children of Israel, children of the east, were gathered together and went over and pitched in the valley of Jezreel. So valley of Jezreel is also the valley of Megiddo, because Armageddon is actually Gideon, the valley of Gideon, right? It's the valley of Gideon. So this adds another twist, because the children of Israel is going to be at Armageddon. We studied that several times. Okay, all right. Now, there's another war that happened at Megiddo. I remember the Megiddo, it says, oh, bad things happen to kings of Israel at Megiddo, right? But God's people also wins at Megiddo, because Gideon and his armies won at Megiddo. Who else won at Megiddo? It's in Judges 4, verse 16. Barak and Deborah against Sisera. And I'll just read it to you. But Barak pursued after the chariots and after the host unto Harosheth of the Gentiles. So when you look at Harosheth, you have to look at it at the map. And we're going to see the map of Israel and see where Harosheth is. Because the children of Israel won at that time. All right. So at Megiddo, God's people win. And the leaders that disguised themselves and were wounded, they were wounded at Megiddo. They lost at Megiddo. All right. So Judges is the story of Gideon at Armageddon. Okay. And how did they die? And they stood every man in his place round about camp, and all the host ran and cried and fled. And 300 blew the trumpets, and Lord set every man's sword against his fellow, even throughout all the host. Right? So they all killed each other in Armageddon. This is what is going to happen when the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet are going to join in Armageddon against God's people. And God's people will triumph, not because of their power, but because the wrath of God has come and the protection of God is lifted, so that they all will start and kill each other. Okay, here it is. This is a little tough to see. But this is the plain of Megiddo. So Josiah died at Megiddo, right? And this is the valley of Jezreel. So that's the whole valley right there. Plain of Megiddo, valley of Jezreel. Okay. And he gathered them together into a place in Hebrew tongue called Armageddon, which is plain of Megiddo. That's Mount Gilboa. Who died at Mount Gilboa? Saul. Right? Right. It's talking about this. It's the same place right there. Okay. Who died at Jezreel and the dogs licked up their what? Ahab and Jezebel. Ahab and Jezebel. That's at Jezreel. What about Harosheth? This is Barak and Sisera. See? Barak and Sisera. There's one more place here. Okay. Bashan. Saul was hung on the wall in Bashan. All right, so this is the plain of Megiddo, or the valley of Jezreel. All right. This all ties in together because this is the story of the hypocrites. What's a hypocrite? One who disguises themselves to assume a false appearance, just like Jezebel. Puts on makeup. Makeup is to assume a false experience. That's a hypocrite. So who are the hypocrites? Matthew 23. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! Ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. You are not going in there, and you're blocking other people from going there. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! For ye devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayer. Wow, you get the widows' houses, the ones that owe money, and then you get them. And for pretense make long prayers. Therefore ye shall receive a greater damnation. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees! The scribes and Pharisees are the hypocrites. And what happened to the hypocrites? What happened to the hypocrites? The class represented by the foolish virgins are not hypocrites. Well, they're not the foolish virgins. They're not the hypocrites. What happened to the hypocrites? The Sanhedrin, which are the hypocrites, had rejected Christ's message and was bent upon his death. Therefore, Jesus departed from Jerusalem, from the priests, the temple, the religious leaders, the people who had been instructed in the law. Who are they? They're the hypocrites. Jesus passed by the hypocrites, right? And turned to another class to proclaim his message, to gather out those who should carry the gospel to all nations. And who are these? These are the 12 disciples. He chose his disciples not from the Sanhedrin, not from the priests, not from the religious leaders, not from the people who are working in the temple, who are instructed in the law, but he chose them from regular people, from the fishermen, right? From another class to proclaim the message throughout the gospel to all nations. And what is the time frame for these people to proclaim that gospel? 1 generation, right? His message to gather out those who should carry the gospel to all nations, as the light of men was rejected by the ecclesiastical authorities in the days of Christ, so has it been rejected in every succeeding generation. And that does include our generation? Right. So the priests and the people who are instructed in the law and the religious leaders of spiritual Israel has been passed by, and another group of people has been selected. All right? Even in our generation. Okay, what about the archers? Oh, we already know this, because who is an archer? Ishmael was an archer, right? And God was with Ishmael, and he grew, and he dwelt in the wilderness. He dwelt in the wilderness. The wilderness is in the east. It's not in the west, because the Mediterranean is in the west. The wilderness is in the east, and the archer is Ishmael. And the residue of the number of archers, the mighty men, the children of Kedar. Kedar is one of the sons of the concubines of... All right, yeah. Kedar is this. Kedar is... actually is the son of Ishmael. Kedar is the son of Ishmael. Ezekiel 27:21. Arabia and all the princes of Kedar, they occupied with thee in lambs and rams and goats, and these were they thy merchants. So the Kedar, the princes of Kedar is Arabia. Oh, it tells you right there. It's so plain now. The archers. So how are the leaders of spiritual Israel wounded by the archers of Islam?
Ancient Israel. This is spiritual Israel.
Spiritual Israel, right. Yeah. Ancient Israel, they were hit by archers. But for spiritual Israel now, how are the leaders of spiritual Israel wounded by archers? And the archers are Islam. How are okay, we have to look at the first and the second woe. All right, this was our study on the first and second woe. I just copied it right into this slide. This is the fifth trumpet. The fifth trumpet starts with Islam coming up, right? The bottomless key of the bottomless pit, and the smoke is the doctrine of Islam, come up around the year 606, all right? And the first woe started on July 27, 1299, when Islam now can torment Rome, which is the Byzantine Empire. But what it does is, when it torments, it means it cannot kill. Like a scorpion, it bites, but it doesn't kill. So it's tormenting it, but it can't kill. So in a way, it's still being restrained. So it attacks, but still restrained, all right? So this is the first woe. And it does that for 150 years, when eventually in 1449, Byzantine surrenders, and Islam now can kill. So Islam is able to kill, right? And is able to kill for 391 years and 15 days until it's restrained again. All right. So if this, the first woe and the second woe will describe the third woe, because it's an application called triple application. The third woe is really the first and the second put together. So what happens? The third woe starts at 9/11. When Islam attacks, but it is restrained, right? And it continues to do that. It continues to be held and held and held. Eventually, it continues to be held right here. It attacks right here and it's held. It attacks right here and it's held. But this line keeps going, right? It keeps going and going and going until at the Universal Sunday Law, when Michael stands up, it is let loose. Just like it was let loose right here. Right? It was let loose. But eventually it's restrained again. When is Islam eventually restrained and eventually it will be destroyed? At Armageddon. Right? So that's where the story of Armageddon comes back in again. Because at Armageddon, they're all going to kill each other. Right? Just like at the story of Gideon. Right? So this is where the stories all come together. So the third woe is actually the first woe and the second woe put together. All right? And it starts at 9/11 and eventually ends at Armageddon. But the leaders of spiritual Israel, what happened at 9/11? They don't believe that anything happened. So they are disguising themselves. And what happens to them? They are being passed by right at 9/11. And a group of people who have stammering lips and don't speak a language are chosen and brought up to take the gospel within one generation, right? Within one generation. This is that one generation right here. Up until this time. This is where the judgment ends, right? That's the judge. This is the one generation. That's when the judgment ends. All right. So Islam initially is restrained, but when Michael stands up, Islam is let loose. And then restrained again and destroyed at Armageddon together with the beast and the false prophet. All right. Okay, I think we're doing pretty good actually. So now, that's the end of Josiah. So what happens after Josiah dies? He was buried in Jerusalem. And Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. Okay, all right. This is actually significant. Why did they put the mother of Jehoahaz is Hamutal? Because that Zedekiah's mother is also Hamutal. So Zedekiah is the brother of Jehoahaz of the same mother. The thing about it is that Jehoiakim is from a different mother. Jehoiakim is, so it's, yeah. All right, all these things, may not make sense to you, but eventually when you hear it over and over again, eventually it'll kind of make sense. All right. And he did that was evil. Oh, evil. The mother is responsible to some degree for the evilness of his son, according to all that his fathers had done. And Pharaoh Necho, okay, remember Necho? Who was Pharaoh Necho? Who was Pharaoh Necho fighting against? Assyria. At Carchemish, right? And Josiah, what did Josiah do? He wanted to meddle. And it says, Pharaoh Necho said, why are you meddling with God's work? I'm doing God's work. Hey, this is the same Pharaoh. He's still alive. Obviously, he's still alive because Josiah died. And Pharaoh Necho put him in bands at Riblah, the land of Hamath, that he might not reign in Jerusalem, and put the land into tribute to 100 talents and a talent of gold. So Jehoahaz was captured and he was taken to Egypt. And then the land of Judah was put into tribute by Pharaoh Necho. All right. So Jehoahaz really did not have any exposure to Babylon. Come to think of it, because he was actually elected by the people, right? He was actually elected by his people, and Pharaoh Necho actually took him to Egypt, all right? Jehoahaz. Jehoahaz means God's seized. All right, God seized. Oh, what did God seize at that time? He was seized and taken to to Egypt, that's for sure. Okay, what also happened when we actually look at the time where this prophetically Jehoahaz stands in, this is when Islam is restrained also, right? So God seized Islam. God is restraining Islam at that time. But also, this is when the little book is given, and you are to seize that little book. All right? Jehovah seized. Jehoahaz. Then the people of the land took Jehoahaz, the son of Josiah, and made him king. So it's the people of the land that made him king. All right? And instead, he was taken into Egypt. All right. So now this is number 4. It's the king number 4, all right? The story of Jehoahaz is actually pretty short. All right. And the sons of Josiah, this is 1 Chronicles 3, verse 15. The sons of Josiah were the firstborn Johanan, the second Jehoiakim, the third Zedekiah, and the fourth is Shallum. So who's Jehoahaz? Jehoahaz is Shallum, because Shallum's mother is Hamutal, and Zedekiah's mother is Hamutal. All right? So Shallum is actually Jehoahaz. Jeremiah 22, verse 10 to 12. Weep ye not for the dead, neither bemoan him. Weep sore for him that goeth away, for he shall return no more, nor see his native country. For thus saith the Lord, touching Shallum, the son of Josiah, the king of Judah, right? Shallum is the son of Josiah, the king of Judah, which reigned instead of Josiah his father. Oh, so that's Jehoahaz. Remember, we already read that in in Second Chronicles and also Second Kings, which went forth out of his place. He shall not return thither anymore. All right. Because Jehoahaz is the king that was captured and died in another land. But it's not in Babylon. Remember his I guess it is his great-grandfather, Manasseh. What happened to Manasseh? He was captured. He was taken to Babylon, but he came back. Jehoahaz has the distinction of being the king that was captured and died in another land. All right. So now you see the punishments. The punishments are getting more severe, right? Manasseh, he was punished, but he was able to come back. Right, he repented. But Jehoahaz here, he was punished and he had to die in another's. All right. Cursed is that person who had to die in somebody else's land. But he shall die in a place where they have led him captive, and shall see this land no more. This is Shalom, which is Jehoahaz. All right. Okay. Now we see our lines. Now when you see this line, here is the line of from 1798, 1840, 1844. This is October 10, 1844. This line down here is actually contiguous. It's going to be so long, you know. This is contiguous with this line. All right, this line is after this line. So keep going, okay? So when you go here, you go down here. This is 1989. All right. This is 9/11, 2011, and so we're living right here. We're waiting for the midnight cry. So we're actually here. This is a continuation of this line. All right. Manasseh. So what does the Manasseh mean? To forget. Right. Manasseh, the papacy was forgotten here, right? In 1798, the papacy was forgotten for the reign of one king. Which king? The Sixth Kingdom. Which kingdom is that? United States. The United States, the reign of one kingdom, because the because Tyrus is forgotten for the reign of one king, which is 70 years. 70 years, right? Tyrus is forgotten. So that 70 years is prophetic for America, because the papacy is forgotten all the way for the reign of one kingdom, all the way until he is remembered again when America falls down, and the papacy is remembered, and America now enacts the Sunday law. So this is the reign for which the papacy is forgotten, all the way until the Sunday law. From here, from 1989, so that's Manasseh. Okay, so but this line also goes down here. So Manasseh is also Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan forgot who the Antichrist was, and he joined with the Antichrist, thinking that the Antichrist was actually communism. But still, the Antichrist is not communism. The Antichrist is the papacy. All right, Ammon. What does Ammon mean? Architect. At this time, William Miller was studying his concordance that he received in 1798. All right. And here is when the independent ministries started studying Daniel 11, verse 40 to 45. And also, I remember that the story of the father and son movement started in the 1990s. All right. We are going back to the foundation, because Josiah means foundations, right? Yeah, the foundations of Daniel 11, verse 40 to 45, also the father and son movements, also all started because we are going back to the foundation. Josiah means foundation. William Miller gave his first lectures, the falling of the stars, that also is the foundation, right? And then after Josiah is Jehoahaz. Jehoahaz means seized, right? Because Islam was restrained, was seized, right here. And the supremacy of the Ottoman Empire was seized right here. Islam is restrained. Islam, restrained right there. This is the end. Oh, right here is the end of the second woe. Here is the beginning of the third woe. All right. Okay. We are getting this better and better, right? To remember. And this is where you are to seize the little book when the Revelation 10 angel comes down. All right? Okay. Then we'll go to and then we'll go to Jehoiakim. Jehoiakim, oh boy, my beeper is going a lot. I am on call today, but okay. Jehoiakim means to raise up, and then eventually we will get to Jehoiakim, but let's go. And then this is Jehoiachin, because Jehoiakim means to raise up. Jehoiachin also means tarry. This is the tarrying time. So I kind of put it right here because the tarrying time is a little on a diagonal here. The tarrying time here and the tarrying time here. And Zedekiah means to make right. This is when the sanctuary is made right, and this is when the first fruits is made right, to be able to be lifted up as an ensign to the whole world, right? So that then Edom and Moab and Ammon will come in and be converted, right there. So this is made right. Zedekiah is made right. So Jehoiachin, all these names tells you the story of actually what happens in this timeline and also this timeline. So the story of these 7 kings are brought into this timeline based on the prophecy of 2520. 2520 brings in the story of these 7 kings right into this timeline. So those who don't believe in the 2520 cannot bring in this story, because the only way you can bring in this story of these 7 kings is by believing in 2520. Wow. Okay. All right. We will continue. Let me see. What is the time? All right. We're doing pretty good. Okay. Now we'll go through the story of the disobedient prophet. The disobedient prophet was at the time of Jeroboam. Jeroboam built 2 golden calves. All right. And the 2 golden calves were a double apostasy. And they cried, "O altar, O altar." So you got 2 golden calves, double apostasy, "O altar, altar, altar." What happens at the midnight cry? Everything is doubled, right? Everything is doubled at the midnight cry. So this is the story. We're still at the story of the disobedient prophet, all right? Now remember, this line is contiguous with this line, right? Okay. So now we go from here down to here. Now the prophet forgets. Oh, that's Manasseh, right? He says, wait a minute. You're not supposed to eat with that other prophet. You're not supposed to eat. Ahab, you're not supposed to eat with the witch of Endor. But then they forget, and they ate. Okay, and the prophet rides an ass. Riding an ass is actually, when you have to ride an ass, you have to restrain that ass so that ass will not go into the field, but actually will follow you in the path that you chose for that ass, right? So you are restraining that ass, right? Islam is restrained right there. So the prophet riding the ass. And when is that prophet going to be killed? The prophet dies. We have to skip this part, but the prophet dies, and then the lion and the ass stands right next to that prophet, but the lion does not kill that ass. All right? So this is the story at the Sunday law, because the ass now the prophet is now the false prophet. That's America. The false prophet. And the ass is still Islam. Islam, the prophet dies but is not buried, meaning the prophet is still able to still have its influence through the dragon, because it is still the leader of the dragon. It is not buried. It still has an influence, so it still lives in that sense. The lion does not kill the ass. Islam is still restrained here, does not die here, right? The lion is obviously the beast, and the ass is Islam. So the prophecy of the prophet being dead and lays down with the lion next to the ass, and the ass is not killed, that's the Sunday law, right? So we see that story right there. And, okay, let's see. The key of David. Who discovered the key of David? Josiah, 25:20. He realized the key of David. Now, who's Josiah, Saul, and Ahab? They're the hypocritical leaders, right? They're the hypocrites. Right? And Saul went to the witch of Endor. What did they do? They went into spiritualism. Right in September 2001. The leaders of Israel. So the spiritual leaders of Israel at 9/11 went into spiritualism at 9/11. And they were hit by the arrow. They were hit by the truth of what Islam is going to do to the armies of Rome. But they don't believe it. So they were wounded. All right? They were hit by that arrow. And let's see. Okay, that's it. They're the hypocrites. And what happened to them? They were passed by. So this was when the leaders are passed by, and a new remnant was picked out to take in the gospel, because the leaders of Israel will not finish the work of the gospel. It will actually be the remnant. The remnant will take the gospel, and what is the time frame again? 1 generation. That 1 generation is from here to here. This is that 1 generation. The remnant is going to take the 1 generation. Right, this is the 1 generation right here. From this time, until the Sunday law. Right? Okay, so that's the summary up until Jehoahaz. Oh, and that's Armageddon. And then they will all be killed in Armageddon. Armageddon is actually the sixth plague, right? Because they're going to be all killed at the 7th plague. They all gather together at the 6th plague, and they're going to be all killed at the 7th plague. Okay. All right. Now the fonts look different because I actually did this while traveling. So I did this while traveling, so it looks a little different. I apologize. I didn't have the patience to change all the fonts back to the original that I always used. Okay. 2 Kings 23, verse 25 to 27. And like unto him was there no king before him that turned to the Lord with all his heart, and with all his soul, and with all his might, according to the law of Moses. Who is this? Josiah. Neither after him arose there any like him, because he was the last king that was good. Because there's no other kings after him. They were all bad after him. Right? There was no king before him that did good like him. Notwithstanding, the Lord turned not from the fierceness of his wrath. So even with all the good that Josiah did, the Lord still punished. Right? They still punished Judah. Notwithstanding, the Lord turned not from the fierceness of his great wrath, wherewith his anger was kindled against Judah, because of all the provocations that Manasseh had provoked him withal. So his grandfather, the sins of his grandfather, they still have to suffer. And the Lord said, I will remove Judah out of my sight, as I had removed Israel, and will cast off this city, Jerusalem, which I have chosen, and the house of which I said, my name shall be there. I will still cast out Jerusalem because of the sins of the father. This is corporate punishment. You have to suffer the sins of your father. You have to ask forgiveness for your sins, but you have to actually also ask, right, you're going to have to suffer. This is the principle of 2520.
Yeah. Because that's the consequences of that.
Right.
You can't do away with it.
No matter how good Josiah was, the sons of Josiah will still have to suffer. They still have to do the 70 years.
That's why you're right. If you don't understand 2520, you would always think of the Lord as a vicious and cruel.
Yeah. Actually, 2520 is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't know this, then you just think of the God as
Yeah.
vengeful.
Right. Okay. So that's why we go back to the 7 times. Now remember the 7 times, there are 4 parts of the 7 times. Right?
Yeah.
There are 4 parts of 7 times. All right. The first part, we already knew that it actually applied to Manasseh, because the first part was in verse 18. Okay. We're doing 7 times part 2. Leviticus 26, verse 18 to 20. I will break the pride of your power, and your heavens will be as iron, and your earth as brass. Remember that? That actually applied to Manasseh. Because Manasseh's pride of power, meaning his supremacy as being the king of Judah, was broken. From the time of Manasseh on, they become puppet kings. They no longer had their supremacy. They lost their supremacy. Right? The pride of their power is broken. And so the first part of 2520, the 7 times curse, applies to Manasseh. Now the 7 times part 2, Leviticus 26, verse 21 to 22. And if ye walk contrary to me, and will not hearken unto me, I will bring 7 times, okay? 7 times more plagues upon you according to your sins. I will also send wild beasts, okay? What are these wild beasts among you, which shall rob you of your children? Okay, who's your children? And destroy your cattle and make you few in number, and your highways shall be desolate. So, wild beasts, your children, and your highways will be made desolate. All right? Okay, this is all prophetic, because this applies to the time of Jehoiakim. All right, so who are the sons and children that are going to be robbed? 2 Kings 20, verse 16 to 18. And Isaiah said unto Hezekiah, wait a minute, who's Hezekiah? Hezekiah is the father of Manasseh, right? He's that show-off king. He showed off to the Babylonians, oh, here's my riches. Hey, how did you turn back the sun 10 degrees? Oh, you know what? Look at my riches. Hey, wait a minute. You're supposed to show off God who actually healed you. Instead, you showed off your riches. Because of that, what? Behold, the days come that all that is in thine house that you showed off, and that which thy fathers had laid up in the store unto this day, shall be carried into Babylon. Nothing shall be left, saith the Lord. And thy sons that shall issue from thee, which thou shalt beget, shall they take away, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. So who was this? This is a prophecy about who? Daniel. Right, because they became eunuchs. All right. So this happened at the time of Jehoiakim. Jehoiakim means Jehovah will arise. Right? 2 Kings 23 verse 36. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem, and his mother was Zebudah. Right? This is Zebudah. So they have the different mother it's a different mother than Zedekiah and Jehoahaz, which is Shallum. Right? So the Jehoiakim is the half brother of Zedekiah and right. I don't think it's that the same Pedaiah.
It's not the same.
No, because Pedaiah that's another generation lower. Yeah, that's another generation. Okay, good thing you picked up on that. Yeah, because I looked at it. Wait a minute, this can't be the same Pedaiah. This is another Pedaiah. Okay, but Zebudah, he is actually a half brother to Zedekiah and Jehoahaz, which is also called Shallum. Okay, so this is when Jerusalem was sieged by Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. The first siege happened under the reign of Jehoiakim. Okay, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. This is the first time he was sieged by Babylon. Right. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, unto his hand, with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and he brought the vessels into the treasures of his house of his God. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored, skillful in wisdom, cunning in knowledge, understanding science, such had ability of them to stand in the king's palace, in whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. And we know who these children were. How many were there? 4. But they're actually more than that. They're actually more than that. But the ones that were written in the Bible, there's 4 of them. And is 4 significant? 4 is very significant. Even that number 4 is significant. All right? Because these 4 are going to have to go through the testing time. Right. Right. And these children were of the king's seed. Whose seed is this? Hezekiah's seed. So Daniel, Shadrach, and Meshach, Abednego were actually the descendants of Hezekiah. Right. Yeah, it's right there.
It was prophesied.
Yeah.
Hezekiah.
Yeah, Hezekiah, your seed is going to be eunuchs. And there you go.
Right.
So Daniel is actually the descendant of Hezekiah. Manuscript releases 311, page 45. The Lord will call men of high and low degree to his bidding. He doesn't just call, fishermen. Yeah, he calls men of noble birth also. The prophet Daniel was a man of royal birth and noble heritage, right? He's a descendant of Hezekiah. Right. He has royal blood. Not many mighty, not many noble are called. Oh, okay. He's going to call a lot more fishermen. Right. Yet we know that the Lord has chosen men from the highest ranks. On them the light of heaven has shone, and they had adorned their practice the truth of Jehovah. Isaiah and Daniel were of royal birth. Right? Okay, it's good to be called even if you're a fisherman, but God will call you even if you're also of royal birth. All right? All right. Yeah. All right. Where are we now? Okay. Jeremiah 25, verse 1 to 4. The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah. Wait a minute. The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim. That's the time when the country was besieged by Babylon. Right? The 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, the king of Judah. That was the 1st year of the king of Babylon, right? The which Jeremiah the prophet spake unto all the people of Judah and to all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, saying, From the 13th year of Josiah, the son of Ammon, the king of Judah, even unto this day, that is 23 years. You know, I have been preaching to you for 23 years, all the time, all the way from Josiah up until now. The word of the Lord hath come unto me, and I have spoken unto you, rising early and speaking. Who rises and early and speaks? But you have not hearkened, prophets. And the Lord has sent unto you his servants, the prophets, rising early and sending them. Rising early and sending them, meaning they are the ones that rise early, not only chronologically in that day, but for that time period. They're the ones that are sent before. There's always going to be a warning. You are not going to go into trial, all this, because everything that God is going to do, he's going to warn you through his prophets. That's why his prophets are rise early, not only in the daytime, right? But also in that time period. Right. Okay.
Period.
Yeah. Because
It's given a
So they have to be earlier to be able to warn people.
Yes.
God just doesn't send you to Babylon and make you captive without any warning. Oh, that's not a merciful God. He's gonna raise up Jeremiah. For 23 years they were warned. Can you imagine? He's been preaching for 23 years. I've been preaching for 23 years and you don't hearken to me. Well, it's if you go, that's your problem because you don't listen to me. Noah is 120 years.
And even Paul of Tarsus to the Ephesians, he warned for 3 years.
Right.
Tears and supplications.
That's right. You have not hearkened nor inclined your ear to hear. Oh boy. Okay. All right. What did he preach? So what was it that he preached? Behold, I will send and take all the families of the north, says the Lord. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant. My servant. Now Babylon is doing my job, my work, and will bring them against this land and against the inhabitants thereof. This is the king of the north. The king of the north, against all these nations around about, and will utterly destroy them and make them an astonishment and a hissing and perpetual desolation. Moreover, I will take from them the voice of mirth, the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom, the voice of the bride, and the sound of the millstone, and the light of the candle. Okay, wait a minute. Do you remember this?
Yes.
Where is this from?
When he was doing the wheat, the threshing.
All right, that's true. But this wording comes from Revelation 18. Remember when we did Revelation 18?
Yes.
So the Revelation 18 is actually the punishment for modern Babylon, right? For the papacy. It's the same thing, right? This is actually the punishment for Israel for Judah, but it's the same punishment for Babylon. Okay, we'll have to prove that. And this whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. All right? And it shall come to pass when 70 years are accomplished that I will punish the king of Babylon, and that nation, said the Lord, for their iniquity, and the land of the Chaldeans will make it perpetual desolation. So I will make you desolate by Babylon, and after 70 years, Babylon is going to be made desolate. What happened to Judah is going to be happen to Babylon also. And that is actually prophetic even until modern Babylon. Because modern Babylon will have to suffer the same thing, all right, for their iniquity. I will bring upon them that land, all which my words I have pronounced against it, even all that is written in this book, which Jeremiah had prophesied against all nations. All right? Okay, so now we will see. Revelation 18. We got to read this, Revelation 18. This is the punishment to the papacy. And cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? Now this is talking about Jerusalem or Babylon? Talking about Babylon. And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, alas, alas. What is alas, alas? Woe, woe, that great city, wherein we're made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. Oh, this is ships of Tarshish. For in 1 hour is she made desolate. Look at, it's the same wording. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, ye holy apostles and the prophets, for God had avenged you on her. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone. Look at that millstone. And cast it into the sea. All right, there you go. For thus with violence shall the great city Babylon, see? Babylon will be thrown down and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of harpers and musicians, pipers, trumpeters shall be heard no more. The same thing. Right? And then no craftsman, wheresoever craft he be, shall be found any more in thee. And the sound of the millstone, there you go, the same thing, shall be heard no more in thee. And the light of the candle shall no more in all thee. And the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more in all of thee. For thy merchants were the great men of earth, for by the sorceries were all nations deceived. So this is actually the punishment for Judah, for Jerusalem, that is given by Babylon. But then Babylon will be punished the same way. Right? It's the same way. Okay. This is out. All right. Okay. Prophets and Kings 4:22. The first years of Jehoiakim's reign were filled with warnings of approaching doom. Yeah, because Jeremiah has been prophesying for 20 years before that time. It's the first 3 years. The word of the Lord spoken by the prophets was about to be fulfilled. The Assyrian power to the north, long supreme, was no longer to rule the nations. Egypt on the south, in whose power the king of Judah was vainly placing his trust, was soon to receive a decided check. All unexpectedly, a new world power, the Babylonian Empire, was rising to the eastward and swiftly overshadowing all other nations. Within a few short years, the kingdom of Babylon was used as the instrument of God's wrath upon impenitent Judah. Again and again, Jerusalem was to be invested and entered by the besieging armies of Nebuchadnezzar. Company after company, at first a few only, but later on thousands and tens of thousands, were to be taken captive to the land of Shinar, there to dwell in enforced exile. Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, Zedekiah, all these Jewish kings were in turn to become vassals, right? They lost their supreme power. They lost the pride of their power and they became vassals of the Babylonian ruler. And all in turn were to rebel. Severe and severe, yet more severe chastisements were to be inflicted upon the rebellious nation until at last the entire land was to become a desolation. Jerusalem was to be laid waste and burned with fire. The temple that Solomon has built was to be destroyed, and the kingdom of Judah was to fall, never again to occupy his former positions among the nations of earth.
Wow.
Okay, this is the principle that we eventually learn from knowing this history. The 2520 applies to them, right? Right. There's a certain duration and there's a certain intensity to the punishments, right? The duration of the punishment is how long? 70 years. How was the 70 years determined? Because of it was because of Sabbath, because of the sins of their fathers, right? The duration was already set. It's because of the sins of your father. Now the thing about it is you don't want to listen. You don't want to keep listening. The more you know, and your children who has no more don't want to listen. And their children know more and they don't want to listen. So there's more responsibility. And because of that, they have to be punished more and more and more. So the intensity depends on your responsibility. More knowledge, more accountability, and the severer your punishment is. But your duration is already established by your fathers, right? Yeah, it's already been preset. So that's why he says, just give up. Just go to Babylon. Just go to Babylon. Don't fight it. Just go. Your duration of 70 years is already established by your fathers. Don't even fight it. Now, if you fight it, then your punishment is going to be more severe. So don't even fight it, right? Okay. I think we'll stop right here. We go about. We're slide number 42 out of 95. So we're at Jehoiakim. We're still in the middle of Jehoiakim. The story of Jehoiakim, there's a lot to learn from Jehoiakim. But the 2520 applies, and it is a duration and an intensity. The duration depends on the sins of your fathers, but the intensity depends on your sin. Your sin. That's why we have to ask forgiveness, not for only for us. How you treat the message, right? Are you going to follow the message? If you don't treat the message, your intensity will be even worse. Your intensity will be worse. All right. So all these stories all come together because it will also apply to spiritual Israel, and also to modern Babylon.
Intensity is also consider how you prepare.
Right. If you prepare and you don't know what is going to happen to you, you are going to repeat what is going to happen already to them before. You are going to refuse what they already know, right? Because you have more responsibility. You have more responsibility. We are given the most knowledge. So imagine if we're lost. Oh my. We're going to have to suffer the longest too. Pretty long.
I think the 70 years starting from the Saul range.
490 years starts from Saul, all the way until the time of Jehoiakim. 490 years. And from that time on, there has been 70 Sabbaths, 70 times 7 Sabbaths that they have not kept. Now the land has to be made desolate for all those 70 years, 70 times, right? Because all those years, the land has to recover. You haven't been letting that land rest for 490 years. That's why you have to leave the land for 70 years. Right. That 70 years was determined by your fathers. You can't bargain that 70 years.
Well, I don't know about that when I just don't want my house consider that 70. Giving Sabbath to his land, of his garden.
Mhm. Oh yeah, yeah. But this is the land. This is his land, which is the land of Israel. That's his land, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Isaac, can you play? Oh, let me go back to. I have to give the ending title. All right. So right now we're showing the ending title, but we will continue next week and continue with the seven times. Right. 7 times part 3 actually. Oh, the 7 kings, but also the 7 times. All right, 7 times, and also there's a lot of 4s in this. There's the 4, the 4 25/20s, the 4 kings that actually had to suffer going to Babylon, the 4 Jewish boys. There's so many 4s here, a lot of 4s. All right. Okay. All right.